Welcome to the Painting of the Week podcast, where we look at some of the most significant paintings throughout history. Introducing your hosts, Phil Grabsky and Laura Bentham.
And welcome to this week's Painting of the Week. It's a beautiful summer's day in Brighton. I'm here with Laura, and it's kind of interesting. This is, our 80th or 90th podcast. And I did have to check right back to number 1 to see whether we'd done this painting before.
Yep.
And we haven't. It is one of the most famous paintings in history, The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci. For those of you who don't know, if you want to see the picture, please go to 7th-art.com and press on the podcast button. The picture will come up. Or have a look at our YouTube channel, where again you'll see the painting. For those of you who are out walking, jogging, driving, whatever, we will describe the painting to you if you don't know it already. It is the last meal, the last supper of Jesus, held in Jerusalem. It's actually Passover. When we made our film Easter in Art, it was very interesting, kind of working through the 4 key Gospels to try and work out the chronology of the final few days of Jesus's life. But this was on the Friday evening, and as I say, it's his last meal. With him are the 12 disciples, and clearly this is supposed to be the point at which Jesus has said, one of you will betray me, and the 12 disciples are all reacting in different ways. Horror, who me, surely not, that kind of thing. And if you look closely, the fourth person from the left is Judas, and rather unfortunately in a way, he's the one with the darkest skin, and he's the one that knows who it is that's going to betray him. Some of you might know this painting from the film and book Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. If you read or watched either and thought there was any credibility to it, then this probably isn't the podcast for you, because I think it's all nonsense. That is not, for example, as we're looking at it, Jesus' left, on his right is not Mary Magdalene, with whom he had a relationship and children and a bloodline and all that kind of malarkey.
Right.
So, Laura,
I think I might have missed that bit.
after it's
Look at me, I'm just like,
don't worry.
I haven't got the notes for that film.
No, you don't need the notes for that one.
Okay.
Um,
Well, as a fact, we have mentioned this painting before.
have we?
Yeah, I think so. Could I ask you a question, Phil? I think
crack
I'm going to
on.
do that. Have you actually made a film, a Da Vinci film?
So we have made 2 Da Vinci films. The very first exhibition on screen was Leonardo from the National Gallery.
Oh.
And that was 2011, so it's going back 14 years now. And they were hosting the biggest Leonardo exhibition in history.
Right.
And that was the exhibition where we launched Exhibition on Screen. For various reasons, we had to do it live. That's what the cinemas demanded at that time. And that was complicated and expensive to do it that way. But we basically our film was opening night. And it bounced between live action, so people in the exhibition talking about the paintings, talking about Leonardo, cutting with pre-recorded biographical sections which we'd made and were ready to just be dropped into the program. People were unsure how the film was going to do. Fortunately, it was a great success, and that was basically, here we are, 40 films later.
That's actually lovely then.
But I did re-edit that film because the problem with shooting a film live is whatever somebody says is they've said.
Mm.
You know, normally we shoot an interview an hour long and we cut up the 5 best minutes. But also you can't grade the pictures properly, and you know, it's live, so there's a lot of adrenaline flowing. People get a bit excited, and anyway, re-edited it, but then still was left with a slight niggle. And that niggle was when I was doing my research for Leonardo. You'd have different numbers of paintings, different estimate of the amount of paintings that Leonardo had actually done or been involved in. 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 21, whatever, 23. So I thought, okay, I'm going to make a film where I find every painting that Leonardo had a hand in and include that in the film. And that's exactly what I did. And that's called Leonardo the Works. One of my favourite films, very powerful film, made more powerful by the fact in the film we only used contemporary music, which is very spiritual, whether you're Christian or not. It's very moving. And in fact, is going to be, we've recently decided we're going to be encoring it in a couple of years' time. The Last Supper, so the National Gallery exhibition was Leonardo at the time, or from Milan.
Right.
So it's basically all his paintings from his time in Milan. He moves around. He's born in Vinci, obviously. We'll talk a bit more about his biography in a second. But he's in Florence here. So it's about his time in Milan, which, as an aside, was quite interesting because just at this point, a painting turned up, which was the first newly accredited painting by Leonardo in over 100 years, the Salvator Mundi.
Oh, yeah.
That subsequently became the most expensive painting ever sold at auction, $450 million, bought by the Saudis. And apart from we're the only people to have filmed that painting, certainly in an exhibition, because apart from one other appearance when it appeared at Christie's in New York, it basically has gone into a vault.
So that must be,
and
that must have been so exciting. I mean,
well, it was interesting because
you see about people getting excited, you have to cut them out. I would have been beside myself.
Well, you see,
cut film.
But you see, the National Gallery knew that it was very exciting, and they included it, even though it's not from his Milan period.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's fair to say that maybe slightly regret not having said in the caption alongside it, attributed to, or attributed to Leonardo, brackets disputed, or brackets heavily conserved. I think there's a discussion. There's no question in my mind that it's a work by Leonardo, but it was when it was discovered by a very enterprising couple of art historians, stroke dealers in America. It was basically in somebody's stairwell, and it was in very bad shape, and they bought it for only a few $1,000s, and then, by having it, and then they had it conserved. Now that's an important process where a very, very talented conservation artist, again in New York, basically repairs it, if you like.
Yeah.
Broadly speaking, what happens to any painting when it's being conserved is the old, sometimes the frame needs to be repaired, sometimes the canvas needs to be restretched, whatever it might be. But usually there is a layer of oil, a varnish across the original pigment, and sometimes that discolors. Fairly often it discolors, actually. So very carefully that has to be removed without removing any of the original pigment. And then that layer of varnish is put back on, and varnishes get better and better, remain clearer and clearer for longer and longer. On top of the varnish, then there is repainting. So even the girl with the pearl earring, for example, if you were to see, as I have, a picture of what it looks like unvarnished, when they were restoring it, then there's quite notable bits of it missing where the pigment has, over the course of 400 years, fallen away.
Yeah.
So the Leonardo was in pretty bad state, the Salvator Mundi, so it was revarnished, and then this very capable artist, in the style of Leonardo, of course, paints on top of the varnish. Now there's a debate about, well, at what point does is it no longer a Leonardo
Yeah.
that's been painted upon? I guess it would be like somebody saying, here's a building built by X, but we've removed all the brickwork. All that's left is the structure, and then we rebuilt it. Is it still a building built by X, or is it? Anyway, long and short of it is,
Yes.
it still, for me, represents the work of Leonardo, and it's disappeared into Saudi Arabia. Could be in the Vault of Geneva, who knows?
Isn't that the same as the Last Supper?
No. So the Last
Hasn't
Supper.
that been-
So the Last Supper, of course, this was a commission for the refractory, i.e., the lunchroom
Please, you said that.
in Milan.
Yeah.
I'd have to remember exactly, but if you want to go and see it now, you have to kind of book 2 months in
I'll
advance,
do it.
so weeks in advance to get in. But it was painted on the wall of this refractory. So the monks, when they were having their lunch, this would be at the end of the hall. Now, Leonardo is always experimenting. He's an absolute extraordinary genius, as we all know. It's a fresco because it's done, it's done onto drying plaster. He's experimenting with the colours, with the oil, not the oil, with the binding solution, if you like. And actually, the experimentation didn't go terribly well. So almost as soon as it was painted, it started to deteriorate in terms of its colour. But it's drying with drying plaster.
Yeah.
Napoleon, when he was conquering much of Europe, we kind of idealise and romanticise these guys a bit. I mean, millions of people died because of Napoleon's actions. But he's a very interesting man. When he travelled, he's got his soldiers up front, and then as you work back down the lines, you get to the people providing the food and the laundry and whatever else, and you've probably got a whole group of prostitutes, and then right at the back, you had this group of people whose job was to collect, aka steal, art. And so everywhere they went, and this is why the Louvre, for example, is full of artwork. I mean, this is how kings and queens operated hundreds of years ago. They conquered and they stole.
Right.
So when he went to Egypt, he was stealing stuff. When he conquered Italy. So they actually physically did consider taking the wall back to France.
Oh, that would.
But then they realised
They couldn't.
the likelihood is the whole thing would collapse.
Okay.
So
They stopped themselves.
this painting is in situ, where Leonardo painted it some, 400 or 500 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, 1498. So
You've been there, Phil.
I have been there. And actually, one thing to note when you're looking at the picture is underneath Jesus is, just to explain it, that is a door frame that some fool decided to put a door at the end of the wall. And you can see the tablecloth, that's not Leonardo's original tablecloth. His original tablecloth goes straight across the bottom. Now they've put this kind of...
Imagine it so you could hear the builder just do it. Imagine if they literally had gone right through Jesus.
I mean, why didn't they build a couple of steps down? Why do they have to keep flat floor?
So where was that door going to?
Well, next
It's like one of those 1970s hatches they pass the food through.
It's just madness. Yeah, it's absolute madness.
It is.
It's not. I mean, even when this was first painted, people were. I mean, it's written. People queued
Yeah.
to see it. I mean, Leonardo was a big star at his time. This was a famous painting. It's been a famous painting ever since, and yet someone puts a door in.
Yeah, not good.
If you want, now in the Leonardo film, I went to the Royal Academy in London.
Oh, I think I might have been with you one of those days, Phil.
Very good. And we interviewed a very fine art historian called Tim Marlowe that I've made about 100 films with in the past, many of which are available from 7th-art.com. And at the time he was working at the Royal Academy, and he talked about this particular painting, because they have a contemporaneous full-scale copy.
Yeah.
It's almost, well, it's always good to see the original, but if you're in London and have any interest in art, I do recommend going to the Royal Academy. They have a small but very fine permanent collection, and they have a full-scale copy, painted at the time, of this Last Supper. And the reason that's so important is because it was painted in oil, and the colours are much more realistic to how it originally would have looked.
Mm.
This painting we're looking at now, the colours have faded.
With this painting in situ, is all about the perspective of the room. Because I read somewhere, I don't know, that you can still see where Leonardo made the initial nail, which ended up on the right temple of Jesus' head. And I mean, this could be completely incorrect. And that every single angle of the room will take you to his face. And so, I'm thinking, it's going to be wonderful to see that one of the, and it was, I was with you at one of the Royal Academy. But in this room, is it that you can stand in all these different locations within the room and you're always drawn back to that head, or is that just the style of that painting?
Okay, so perspective is a relatively new thing in art at this point. If you go back to not that long before, an artist like Giotto or others, the paintings look quite flat. So I don't know about a nail point on Jesus's. I mean, Leonardo was too much of a perfectionist to have left any evidence of a nail hole in the very temple of Jesus. But there's no question that he is, I mean, it's not entirely clear what they are, whether they're wall hangings or just alcoves in the wall, but those, you can see the lines are going, there is perspective that's going back to those three openings at the back, which are then, if you want to, your eye goes out to the countryside. There's no window that one can see. Famously, Leonardo always does his kind of backgrounds. The further you get, the lighter blue it becomes. He had already realised something that Monet was to exploit, 300-400 years later, that reds and oranges pop out at you, and blues tend to sit into the background. So if you want to make something three-dimensional, your foreground colours are better off being, as I say, reds and oranges, and your background colours are better off being greens and blues, and it just helps give something a three-dimensionality. There is a rhythm, one could argue, about the table, which is going, you're reading it left to right, but it's almost musical in the way that the bread rolls are positioned and the colours change. And if you even look closely, I mean, I love, if you look at the tablecloth, you can see how it has been folded up, and all the creases.
Is it that what makes this one of the most stand out Last Supper? Because of all the positioning of the disciples, the drama on the faces, all the others they said around that time or before had all been a bit stagnant and just squashed almost.
Well, this comes up, doesn't it? It comes up with the artists we look at. We've been talking recently about Caravaggio and how he's using real people, which Leonardo was known to do, and it's a narrative. There's personality, and there's expression, and there's storyline within those faces. Everybody is having a response. So you can stand in front of this painting and try to work out, what are people thinking? What are they saying to each other? What did he just say? Surely, this is Jesus announcing that he's going to be betrayed to the Roman authorities, and that could mean death.
Yeah.
And that is shocking.
I like that one, the second to the right, who actually, I've got a list of who they are, and it says James Major. But I like his reaction. Just real, what?
Real
drama.
But also, and again, this is something that we see in Caravaggio. He's got his arms outstretched.
Yeah.
Is that, a forward allusion to a crucifix? Maybe.
Oh, okay.
Of course, people can read all sorts of things. So, go back to Dan Brown, he reads a lot into the fact that there's this triangle, this inverted pyramid between John and Jesus.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then, of course, he suggests that John isn't John at all, but is Mary Magdalene, as I understand it.
Judas has a bag of coins in his hand.
Yes. So he's already been paid.
Yeah.
If we work along it, so far left, you've got Bartholomew. And of course, most people wouldn't know the names of the 12. I mean, I didn't know James Major is something I'd forgotten.
No, well,
Bartholomew, James, then Andrew. You've got Judas, as I mentioned earlier, with his bag of coins.
Yeah.
Peter and John. Peter's whispering in John's ear. Jesus, of course. You've got Thomas. The finger
pointing upwards.
Explore what that means. James Major, Philip, of course, my namesake. Matthew, Thaddeus, and then at the end is Simon. Bread and fish. Again, making an allusion or a reference back to the Sermon on the Mount, perhaps. Again, they're all. You almost don't think about it, but if you think about it logically, hold on a minute, they're all on one side of the.
Yeah.
Why are they not? But
I think prior to that, Judas was always on the other side of tables in other Last Suppers. Which I think this one was.
I mean, it's not it's not the first or the last Supper that's ever been painted.
No. I mean, Judas doesn't want to make it too obvious, though, the bag of coins. I think he could have hidden them. Who knows? But it wasn't Da Vinci sort of notorious for not finishing his work.
I think Da Vinci is, and both of our films look into his life. He's an extraordinary man.
Yeah.
I mean, some would say the most extraordinary person that's ever lived, because he's inventing.
Yeah.
I mean, one can exaggerate slightly, but I mean, there are diagrams in his notebooks of things that look like helicopters and look like tanks and look like, he's doing fortifications. He's doing things for extracting water. In fact, he gets into trouble because he helps fortify Florence against the papal powers of Rome. And he's captured, and anyone else probably would have been killed at that point. But the Pope's going, "Oh no, I love Leonardo, bring him here." He tries to do a major sculpture. In terms of paintings, he has his commissions. Sometimes they're just portraits. Mona Lisa is obviously a famous one. Lady with Ermine, which is absolutely beautiful. Another fantastic one in Washington. And they're commissions for people. But then he sometimes gets bigger commissions. This is I suspect the biggest, as far as I can remember. Although in Milan, in the Sforza Palace there in the centre, there's a Leonardo work that many people don't know about or slightly overlook, which he's decorated a room.
Okay.
And he's kind of decorated it part forest, part jungle.
No.
And that when we were filming, that only recently been kind of restored and revealed and open to the public again.
Are his sketchbooks on display?
Sketchbooks are amazing. I mean, they're so full of life and ideas. And
I love
sometimes you've got the backwards writing because he's trying to hide his thoughts from people.
Well, that's interesting.
And he's looking for work. Ultimately, he ends up in the employ of the French king, and he dies in Amboise because that's where the king put him in a nice chateau there.
But we were talking earlier, wasn't he? He was a illegitimate son. His father had an affair with a girl who, they said peasant girl. And I was saying that to you. I was like, oh, I wonder if they ever found out much about his mother. And I think that has now come to light. What, recently?
Well, in Leonardo the Works, one of my key interviewees and consultant really on the film is Martin Kemp, and who I went to interview just outside of Oxford. Yeah, I think he's certainly one of the leading experts, maybe the leading expert on Leonardo. So I don't know, 8-9 years ago, he claimed to have solved the mystery of who Leonardo da Vinci's mother was. 500 years after the guy's death, Leonardo's death. It was known that she was kind of a servant girl. But Martin claimed that she was a woman called Caterina di Neolippi, poor peasant living not far from or just outside of Vinci. So Vinci is a small town that Leonardo was born in. We went and filmed there. It's in the film. Sweet little town. But the notary or lawyer, Ser Piero da Vinci, who was about 10 years older than Caterina, got her pregnant.
Right.
And what's interesting was that even though Ser Piero da Vinci was shortly to be married, he did look after the illegitimate child, or his father did, perhaps.
When you look back on all these things, DNA and everything,
Who knows?
that lady as well, there must have been for them two to create a genius. And that's interesting. Really interesting.
Nature or nurture, it's hard to know.
No, exactly.
What we know with Leonardo was that he was soon training, and the first paintings in the film are ones where he's already learnt his craft, but he's been asked to fill in around the outsides.
All right.
To do a fish, for example. But already,
yeah,
he's so talented.
It's not just a little,
little
line drawing of a fish.
No.
It's a okay.
It's a very realistic fish.
Oh, amazing.
But he obviously had that passion to really study really hard and just keep doing it and doing it to put it right.
Yeah.
I mean, what makes this painting a great painting? We talked about all the other Last Suppers. So what makes, why? Some of it, of course, is just the kudos of Leonardo's name.
Yeah, for sure.
Some of it is legitimate. If you compare this to other Leonardos, don't you think there is a life and a vitality here?
Definitely.
And bearing in mind, of course, most people at this time are illiterate.
Mm-hmm.
So the Bible, which is the greatest story ever written, you could argue, one of the most significant, also, and I think this was the tagline for Eastern art, it's the greatest story ever painted. Artists, until only relatively recently, all painted scenes from the Bible. I mean, we're making the Caravaggio film right now, and such a high proportion of his work is stories from the Bible. St. Paul, St. Matthew, St. Andrew, whoever it is.
Yeah.
And, what a thrill for an artist to get a big commission like this. I mean, you were happy for the work, but painting portraits of somebody's wife or mistress was satisfying up to a point. Maybe painting still lives, satisfying up to a point. But if you got a commission to paint Christ on the cross, or the raising of Lazarus, or something like the Last Supper, this is fantastic. You've got 13 characters to paint here. You've got to make them work as a whole, individually. You've got to make that table as realistic as possible. Even the sandals, I mean, it's all worn away a little bit,
It's funny when you think about it. The monks, because they probably weren't allowed to talk to start with, so their heads must have been spinning with the stories that are coming from those faces and those gestures.
Well, exactly. This would have been looking down upon them, almost like the head table.
Yeah. They would have gone off and spent hours thinking
And-
about it.
And actually, the position and the place of the painting is very important. I have been to, only once or twice, but to a meal at a university, once in Oxford, once in Cambridge. And of course, head table, it was all, or if you go to private school or boarding school or whatever. Head table, they probably, all the teachers and the headmaster will sit on one side looking down on everybody else. So actually, it wouldn't have felt so unnatural to those monks. It would have felt like these were the 13 most important men in the room, and they're looking down to the. And then, it's a big painting. It's an overwhelming painting. And like you say, if it was a silent order, I mean, I've only experienced that once. I once went to a place called Ampleforth Abbey, where we had lunch. I was actually filming the Dalai Lama of Tibet giving a talk there. But we had lunch with the teachers and schoolboys, and no one was allowed to talk.
Oh, no, that's my worst nightmare for them.
You'd never have made it.
I never would have gotten through.
But it was interesting because there was somebody on a lectern who basically read out a story.
Oh, okay.
Every lunchtime, every meal, you would be read to. Well, the paintings on the wall are also something, no one is being distracted by chatter. No one had phones back then.
No.
I mean, the biggest painting I've ever seen in the United Kingdom, and it must be one of the biggest paintings in the country, is at Christ Hospital just up the road.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing, in the refectory, almost the entire wall is one massive painting. And again, if the situation there was, don't talk, you are going to be looking at the painting.
Yeah. And definitely, if once that must have been open to the public, you can understand and like say people couldn't read and write. It was just a massive sense of let's go and look at the faces, the gestures, and chatter and tell the story and talk about the story.
And it is so important to let's take a slightly cynical attitude.
Oh,
this is so important to the church that people engage with the story of the Bible, believe this to be true, because if you believe, basically, faith comes to, it's about, do you choose to believe? Have you been convinced to believe or not? I would say, in a sense, Christ being resurrected from the dead is essential to your belief in Christianity. You have to believe in Christ as an individual. You have to believe these stories. And so the artist was very important to the church because the artist communicated the stories in a way that engaged with the audience and motivated the audience. Now, the cynic might say, well, they needed the audience to be motivated because there's a yin to the yang, there's a black to the white, which is if you believe in heaven, you also believe in hell. Mm-hmm. And the church was saying, you know what, we can help you out here. If you look at those paintings on the wall where we have depicted the descent into hell, it's pretty nasty.
Yeah.
People are getting, burned, cut up, rods put where rods shouldn't go, and all the rest of it. But if you're happy giving us a tenth of your harvest or giving us a little bit of money here and there, we can absolve you of some of your sins. But you have to believe in hell first before you want to pay to help.
I only believe in hell now because we did that podcast on Bosch.
Bosch is great.
So extraordinary.
He just went.
So
you wouldn't want. You wouldn't want to be in his version of hell.
No.
And in the Reformation, there was a lot of debate about what artists should do, what artists should not show. So Caravaggio, for example, he was very aware that nudity was off the cards, for example.
Right.
And the way he presented the Virgin Mary was pretty daring. She's not an idyllic young woman with her eyes to the heavens. She is a girl from the street. In some cases, an actual prostitute, being the Virgin Mary, looking very dead.
Right.
this was really quite shocking.
Yeah.
Not to the extent that it was provocative. I don't think he was ever at risk of being, burnt at the stake for the way he painted things. But he was definitely pushing boundaries. Anyway, but you go back to Leonardo. I think Leonardo, sometimes people will come after him and say, "Where's our painting? Where's our painting?" He's being distracted.
Yeah.
It is a long. I mean, fresco you have to move quite quickly, but oil paintings you can take your time.
But also that was his nature. He was not so good at finishing. I'm not very good at finishing things.
But the Virgin of the Rocks, there's two. There's one in the Louvre and there's one in National Gallery.
Yeah.
It took him a long time to do, and then it's kind of rejected, so he has to do it again. It is the most remarkable story, and the paintings, and the burnt and not drawing. Anyway, at the National Gallery, it's stunning.
I think we should all go to the Royal Academy if we can, or somewhere, because that door is really upsetting now.
I think
we need to see the bottom half.
I think at very least go to Leonardo the Works in the exhibition on screen film.
Definitely.
And just look at the section on this painting. It's fascinating. Or yes, absolutely. Go to the Royal Academy in London and look at it and see it, in a sense, pretty close to, in certain ways, certainly colour tonality, to how it was. It was painted almost contemporaneously, shortly after Leonardo himself completed his version. Or if you go to Milan, do make a beeline, but book in advance. And in fact, my recent experience of going to galleries in Europe is you have to book everywhere in advance, whether it's the Van Gogh Museum, anyway, wherever you're going.
They're just full.
Which is great because it shows these things are popular. You talk to a broadcaster and they're like, "Oh, nobody's interested." And you think, have you been in the real world? Do you know how long you have to queue? How many weeks you have to book in advance to go and see Leonardo's Last Supper? Anyway.
They need to be with me as well for the last 3 years, Phil. My whole life has changed.
Yeah, there you go.
Look at me.
Anyway. Lunchtime, isn't it?
Oh yeah. There's too many bread rolls on that table.
I mean, that's the thing. I always just want to pick up one of those bread rolls.
Exactly. We always get to the food.
I mean...
I do.
It's a slightly odd meal, really. It's just fish and bread.
Yeah. We were hoping for more.
There's no... certainly no sauces. No salad.
No.
Anyway, it's a remarkable painting by
I'm sure loads of people have their favourites as well. So, interesting.
Very interesting painting. That's Leonardo's The Last Supper. As I say, do go to 7th-art.com. What would be really nice is if you could encourage, if you enjoy our podcasts, we'd love you to encourage one or two people to also listen. That would be very nice. We get people telling us they enjoy them, but we'd like more people to enjoy them.
Yeah.
So do spread the word, sign up to the newsletter at 7th-art.com, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Painting of the Week podcast. For more information, please visit our website at 7th-art.com or contact us by emailing info@7th-art.com. See you next time.